Order! All rise for following on Ash's Inquest on talkSPORT 2.
Hello and welcome to Following on Ash's Inquest. I'm Jon Norman alongside Steve Harmison. You're listening on talkSPORT 2 or you are watching on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. This will also be available very shortly after we finish talking on the Following on podcast feed. Steve Harmison, is this the day that Bazball died?
It's over. Whether it's Bazball died or not is another argument again. Some would say, some of the commentators have been saying, I've been flicking between 2 or 3 different stations, and they're talking about Australia, England changing their way and being a little bit more circumspect, a little bit more reserved and going into their shell a bit. I disagree. I just think this was top quality fast bowling backed up by a world-class spin bowler. This was relentless bowling from Australia, and England just didn't have the answer. They really didn't. Technically, it showed our deficiency. I think mentally, it showed our weaknesses. And I think from watching that this morning, it was very difficult. I know you slept through the Newcastle-Fulham game. I didn't want to bring it up. It's been 3 minutes since the show started that my team got through to the semi-final.
Yeah, thanks for that.
But having watched that game, stayed up throughout the night to watch Australia, I really enjoyed the way they bowled. As much as it pains me to say it, I really enjoyed the way they bowled. They bowled in a partnership. The fundamentals of test match bowling on a flat pitch, I was there to see. And you can't argue. This was a good surface. Australia got 371. A lot of people said they were possibly a bit short. And their bowlers came out with a plan, said to England, we don't back your technique. And the fielders were all over them, whether it was catching or the energy in the ring. It was a team that was on the top and a team that looks as though probably at rock bottom, barring the captain.
There's a lot to talk about today, but there's also a lot of criticism about Ben Stokes' batting. I was surprised. I understood why he set out. We've seen Stokes bat like this before, by the way. I understood why he batted as he did in the afternoon session. But once Brydon Cast was out, actually once Will Jacks was out, I thought he was going to flick a switch. I don't know whether the cramp that he was clearly suffering from meant that he couldn't do that. But I did find it slightly strange. And I don't know if I am wrong here, Harmy, but it seemed like he was batting to make a point to the dressing room at times. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, you've got a point that whichever way Ben went about it, if he slugs it up in the air, 27, 28 off 80, 90 balls, people would be going, right, he's just giving it away because he's going down with his team. Ben Stokes has valued his wicket. This is the problem, I think, is with this team. No value on their wicket. Whenever it gets tough, there's no value on their wicket. The value on their wicket is go harder. The mantra of this team is, well, we try and put the bowlers off their lines, put them under pressure by going hard. No, respect the fact that the bowl's in a good area. It's test match cricket. There's a clue in the title. And all Ben Stokes has done is valued the off stump that he's got, valued his wicket, and he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't when Jofra Archer's in. He backed Archer. If Archer gets out and Tongue gets out, all of a sudden he's 30 not out off 110 balls. Then he might question, I could have gone a little bit harder. But he backed Jofra to play the way he did in Brisbane. So, I can't, and I'm very rarely am I critical of what things that Ben Stokes does. But if we're looking at Ben Stokes and saying he could have gone harder in the last sort of 45 minutes of that innings, that day when it was 40 degrees heat, he's got cramp in both legs, and he's watching Ollie Pope chip one up in the air. He's watching Jamie Smith waft it one. Brydon Cast get caught on the crease when you should be trying to get forward. All these things that are happening around him.
I understand that. I do understand it.
I can't look at Ben Stokes and say he could have changed and gone through the gears. He will have to tomorrow once he gets a good night's sleep and he gets some food inside of him, and once Jofra gets out, or it gets a bit tough and it looks like Jofra's going to get out, then he has to go harder. But not with an hour to go tonight, I think. As well as another thing, John, I mean, you've also got to look at it and think, as a bowling unit, the last thing you want to be doing is sending Jofra back out tonight. So if I can defend me off stump and get me through tonight, I get my bowlers with another night's sleep under their belt, and we've still got a chance to win this game. So I want them to be coming out fresh as a daisy tomorrow, as opposed to 190-run lead. We come out tonight and bowl for 10 overs. It goes crash, bang, wallop like it did yesterday morning. And all of a sudden, we're staring down a barrel of 240 runs behind, 9 wickets in hand, Australia, trying to stay in the Ashes.
Yep, I get it. But it does kind of fly in the face of the take the positive option that we've been hearing for the last 3 or 4 years. Kanya says, if Stokes is going to bat at this speed, should he not bat higher? Well, I mean, he's got the Joe Root problem, isn't he? Because the wickets tumble so quickly. He's actually in and batting well earlier than he would otherwise wish anyway. Stokes blocking all day, says Castruni. He says, laugh out loud. It's not Bazball, it's board ball. And Sarach says, in these 4 years, whenever I saw Stokes bat, either I feel he is right in playing the correct way of Test wicket, or he is backstabbing England by playing against what they want. Today's innings was rubbish. And tomorrow he may go out, all guns blazing and scoring at highest strike rate, but he derailed today's innings momentum for him and the other batters too. Skywalker says, from Bazball to Bauble, as in board, not as in a bauble that you hang on a tree. Michael Taylor says, we have all been led to believe Bazball was entertaining. I've never been more bored watching England. We're losing heavily and we are going out with a whimper. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's some of the comments on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Add your comments and I'll, if I can get to them, I'll read them out. Look, at the end of the day, Harmy, we were here yesterday, 24 hours ago, and I did ask you what it was that you saw from the previous 2 test matches that made you believe that England could bat 90 to 100 overs and score 450. And here we are, 213 for 8. They trail by 158, and the Ashes is done, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. As much as you back Stokes to do something special, he's been there before. He's not doing this. England are shot. I mean, I'm sure we'll go through the dismissals. England are mentally gone. And that's the biggest thing. And I think a lot of that Ben Stokes innings was they didn't want to bowl. He didn't want his team to bowl tonight. He's trying to get himself, just buy himself some time. Keep kicking the can down the road. I look at the back end of the innings. England unfortunately are shot against a very, very good Australian bowling unit. Australia's bowling unit was, you can be critical as much as you want towards Stokes batting 150 balls for 45, but their bowling unit was absolutely relentless from both ends. Their ability to keep putting pressure after pressure after pressure. We have simply not been good enough. As are technically not good enough. Our bowlers can't hit the same spot twice.
Why is that though, Harmy? I mean, of all the things that I thought England's bowlers were good for, it was, consistency. I mean, Jofra Archer did it. But why is it that we can't get 2 or 3 bowlers together that can hit a line and a length in the way that we saw Scott Boland do today and Pat Cummins?
Well, if you look at the dynamics of a bowling unit, you need, and I'm not advocating that we should have brought Chris Wokes and we shouldn't have retired Jimmy Anderson. I'm not for one bit. I think them correct decisions were made. But when you look at a bowling unit, you need bowlers that can start a session and give you a little bit of control and put the opposition under pressure in the first half an hour of every session. Now, we had that under Broad and Anderson. We had that at home with Chris Wokes. We got that a little bit with Jofra Archer, but he's not that type of bowler because he's more of a wicket-taking bowler and he's an aggressive threat. You look at the Australian bowlers, you've got that with probably Cummins, Hazelwood, and Boland. Stokes you a little bit more of a maverick. So when you look at England's bowling unit, we haven't got the new ball bowler to back up probably a Jofra Archer that can hold an end. And this is why, and I'm not sort of trying to be smart after the event and the horses bolted, but you've heard me say, and I'm hoping you're going to back me up on this, that Matt Potts would be in my team most times because I can rely on what I'm going to get. And I'm not saying Matt Potts is going to win the Ashes for us. I'm not saying Matt Potts is going to make a difference in this. But what Matt Potts will do is he bowl a ball in and around off stump, and he will consistently put it there. And whether it's good enough for Test match cricket or not, we know that he can bowl 5 or 6 balls in the same spot over after over and give us a chance to build some momentum and build some pressure. And then you've got your maverick type bowlers, your Steve Harmison types, your Bryden Cast types, your Josh Tongue types, to come with Ben Stokes. After that, once you've put your opening bowlers or your start of session bowlers, put them under pressure. England haven't got start of session bowlers. England have arguably only got one new ball bowler. This is me advocating last night for Ben Stokes to open a bowler and bowl a brand new ball. So there's part of the problem, that we can't build pressure from both ends. We've just seen a masterclass of pressure from both ends for the best part of 5 hours in 40-degree heat on a flat pitch with an off-spin bowler. And this is another part of the problem, that Michael Vaughan is right in such a way that we've identified Shoaib Bashir and given him a chance to be our frontline spin bowler. But Shoaib Bashir would have gone 2 for 100 off his 22, 23 overs yesterday, the same as Will Jacks, maybe 95, not 100. Nathan Lyon's bowled 20 overs, 2 for 50. This is Nathan Lyon, who's one of the best bowlers of all time. We haven't got that spin bowler. So we can have a look at what the dynamics of our group is, but I think we can also have a look at our selection panel and our way of building this squad and understanding that we are too much heavy invested in trying to hit the ball out the ground and not looking for the fundamental, simple, basic things of creating pressure, which we had under Broden Anderson, a little bit of Wokes at home when we had start of sessions in our control, as opposed to trying to crawl back 6.5 and over in the first 20 minutes, half an hour. And that, coupled with the fact that we keep nicking balls wide of off stump, chipping balls to mid-wicket, all that in the melting pot is simply we've not been good enough.
We need to talk about Ollie Pope, but he's got one innings to... He's 27, right? He's 28 January the 2nd, so before the 5th test. You never know. I mean, Usman Khawaja will tell you, you never know when it's ended. And he's got enough talent to come back again, but the dismissal was truly awful. He didn't look right at the start. I mean, he tried to leave a ball from Boland, I think it was, that nearly cannoned back onto his gloves and through to the slips, and then he tried to cut one that nearly cut him in half. He didn't look like he wanted to drive, and I thought Crawley's innings was interesting as well. He looked cowed. He looked like he had put away the drive. He didn't look quite right. Duckett was just getting on with things. Duckett's got some good balls, by the way. I think he's been a touch unfortunate. But anyway, Ollie Pope, that dismissal was a guy that essentially went out there thinking, whatever I do, I'm not going to get out on the drive. And what did he do? Well, actually, if he was going to play at that ball, he probably should have driven it and, got to the pitch of it, eyes over the ball, played it along the ground, blah, blah, blah. But what he did instead was he just dragged it, didn't he? Dragged it from, 7th stump to short mid-wicket. First over as well that Nathan Lyon had bowled. It was the shot of a man who looks shot. He looks scrambled. Yeah. And he may go out there and score 100 in the second innings. And it would be glorious if he managed to do that. But for a guy that's played 8 test matches against Australia and has never gone past 50, in fact, his highest score against Australia was in the first innings at Perth, it England are going to be feel like they are going to have to make a change in their batting. They've only got one backup batter, and it's looking more and more likely that Jacob Bethel will play in Melbourne, and Ollie Pope is set for a spell on the sidelines and will never bat higher than 6 again for England.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up perfectly there. You know, this young man, he's a very, very impressive young man. I've got loads of time for Ollie Pope, but unfortunately, I think he does need to come out. I think he needs a little bit of rebuilding. I looked at him in the first test and thought, you know what? There's good signs here. His balance was good. His head position wasn't too bad. He wasn't as frantic. First 30 balls, his bat plane was coming down straight, or straighter than what it has been. He was all over the shop in Brisbane, and that word scrambled. That word scrambled. His brain must have been scrambled for that shot against Nathan Lyon, to go from where it was to get it to the position he got it to. I'm talking as a world-class number 11 here. He just looks all at sea. I feel sorry for him because it's not a very nice place. I've been there, been in Australia when your head's all over the shop. He probably does need a little bit of time out. Does he come back as England's backup wicketkeeper later down the line because Jimmy Smith's not exactly pulling trees up, and I think he's been found out a little bit physically, technically, and mentally, where Ollie Pope probably needs a bit of time with bats back at Surrey, Alex Stewart, because you got to remember there's been a lot asked of Ollie Pope. Not defending him. He's been asked to do vice captain. He's been asked to do bat number 3 where nobody wants to bat. And there's a good player in there. I spoke to Manners, John, on Monday on Following On, and we talked about that great innings in Hyderabad. You don't play innings like that in Test match cricket if you're a bad player. You're a good player. I think this is all in the mind of Ollie Pope, and he's brought in a lot of technical problems, which I think need to be ironed out and addressed for him to go away and come back. I still think he'll play Test cricket again, but I don't think he'll play anymore in this Ashes once this Test match is finished.
Nasty Badger says, I want to see McCullum resign after this test. His team is not doing well. We had a caller to talkSPORT who said something similar, actually. Angus says, Aussie here. Stuart Broad was right when he said this is our worst team since 2010. And this England team will beat NASA's record. The effort from England has been pitiful. Baz Ball is dead. What else? Joe Root is lucky that Pat Cummins, this is from Bismoy99, Joe Root is lucky that Pat Cummins was not playing the first 2 tests. He would never have scored a century with Cummins playing. Now, I don't know about that, but I tell you what, that was, when you look back at the past and you talk about Mike Atherton, fine batter, opening batter, and the problems he had against Glenn McGrath and Curtly Ambrose, which is completely understandable. Joe Root against Pat Cummins, it's just time and time again, Cummins just seems to have his number.
He does, and he bowled brilliantly, didn't he, Pat Cummins? How many times do we say over the last, 5 days? He hasn't played since July. It's going to be hot, first couple of days. Get him into his 3rd and 4th spell. He's bowled 14 overs, 3 for 54, and he was relentless in and around off stump. He was. Joe Root nicked the ball, which was wide of off stump. Joe Root nicked the ball, which I think he more often than not nicks. If there's if there's an area where the greatest player that England's ever produced is vulnerable, it is in and around that sort of top of 4th, top of 5th stump where he sometimes doesn't quite get his weight going into the ball and he gets caught on the crease. Pat Cummins' lengths and his angles are brilliant at that. So, yeah, might have a point about him not being at Brisbane, but take nothing away from Joe. I think it was backed up at the other end. It was relentless. Boland, Green when Green came on, never let up. Stark started the ball rolling very, very nicely, and Cummins and Lyon when they got together in that middle period, they didn't give any cheap singles, didn't give any boundaries, and it was a bit like. Alan Brazil just mentioned to me on Breakfast Show talking about Glenn McGrath and Lyon going past McGrath. It was a little bit like Warner McGrath today, where you got no freebies. constantly under pressure and your technique was questioned, and Joe's unfortunately in around that fifth stump, he does, along with Harry Brook, have the similar trait, which is just a sort of push at the wide one.
Harry Brook, it did seem like England, and this is going back to my first question to you, Harmy, is Bazball dead? Is today the day that Bazball died? Zach Crawley, Joe Root's been playing Joe Root's way for a couple of years now, so moving to one side. But Zach Crawley today seemed to have put away a couple of shots. He didn't last too long. Harry Brook hit 45 from 63. Ben Stokes, we've seen him start an innings as slowly. We haven't seen him continue through 151 deliveries this slowly, but I completely take on board the fact that it's going to be cooler tomorrow, 29 degrees in Adelaide. You want your bowlers bowling then. You don't want them bowling today. And it was a case of just sticking it out. He was also suffering cramp. But essentially, everything that we've been told about Bazball over the last 3 years disappeared today. England have changed tack. And I think when they look back at this series, the selection of Will Jacks over Shoaib Bashir, the confused narrative about whether England lost the first test because of the batters that were set were getting out, or because batters weren't more aggressive, even though they were all out playing aggressive shots. And then the fact that they've gone out of their shells and then back into it today. I think that there's been confusion in terms of the message that has been delivered. And essentially, I think a lot of the batters today weren't quite sure what they should be playing. And I think it showed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in that. There's a hell of a lot in that. And unfortunately, John, do you know what the biggest thing about all that stuff is? It's not New Zealand, home or away. It's not Pakistan, home or away. It happens sometimes against India, and it happens all the time against Australia. Whenever you're playing an Ashes series, I'm not saying everything goes out of the window, but mentally, it's a lot more. It's a lot more taxing on you mentally than anything else. You always question yourself. There's always doubt, because that's a human body. But today, you know what? If England had come out swinging from the hip, I reckon England would have bowled 15 overs by now. I really do. I really do. I mean, if England had come out swinging today, England might have got 210 all out and bowled 15 overs.
Yeah, I agree. I do.
Technically, we're not good enough.
I agree.
We come up against a very good bowling attack.
I agree. But Harmy, midway point of a series is not the time to change your tactics, to change your approach.
No, it's not. But I think we're putting pressure to change your
mentality. Yeah, well,
but I think there's a lot more in. I think there's a lot more in how well Australia bowled and how in their shell England went, and I think that's the biggest point I would make on today's performance. That as much as I really would like England to come out and play expansively, you have to earn the right. And unfortunately, I just don't think they're in any position. Do you know what? It's simple. We just might not be good enough. We might not be good enough. Top 7 batter, taking Joe Root out, and I'm putting Harry Brook in here. That we might not be good enough to play Test match cricket against Stark Cummins and Boland and Lyon. Well, that could be the simplest sort of explanation to where England are at this moment in time.
Do you know what, Harmy? We did this show following on Ashes Inquest in 2017, 2018, when the England bowling attack comprised of Chris Wokes, Moeen Ali, Tom Curran, Craig Overton, Jimmy Anderson. Was Stuart Broad injured? I can't quite remember.
Broad was injured, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, Stokes was missing. He missed that series. And they were bowling against Steve Smith, who was a Superman. Labuschagne was in top form. Actually, it was the year before Labuschagne started playing, wasn't it? But David Warner was still batting. I guess Khawaja was there. I can't even really remember Steve Smith. He seemed to bat for essentially 25 days straight. And at the end of that series, we came away from it and we said we can never, ever go to Australia with that type of attack ever again. And I don't think the gulf between the England team this time and the England team that time with Australia is as wide. I don't think it is. No. Yes, I totally agree. I thought Australia bowled brilliantly today. Yesterday, we made the point that Nathan Lyon was key. And I think Nathan Lyon was the standout bowler today because he basically bowled an end. He kept things tight. He was very, very difficult to get away if you're a left-hander. I think the right-handers probably had a little bit more scope, but that all makes sense. But because he could bowl 20 overs and go for under 50 and pick out a couple of wickets, and I mean, the confidence boost those 2 wickets in his first over must have given him, by the way. How different would have things have been if that hadn't have happened? Maybe not totally different, but certainly would have been a bit different. But the fact that he could bowl an end just meant that Australia could get the best out of their fast bowlers. You know, it meant that they could bowl short, sharp spells. Now, you look at that bowling attack towards the back end of the day, the last 45 minutes, they were out on their feet. And actually, Mitchell Starc didn't bowl brilliantly today. So there was an opportunity there for England if Lyon hadn't have delivered. And Lyon did deliver. And because Lyon delivered, it meant that the other bowlers, you know, could really go through their spells and make the difference that they did. But I'm not disagreeing with you here. I think that what Australia have shown is if you put 4 world-class bowlers together in home conditions or familiar conditions, and if those 4 bowlers all have a point of difference from each other, but can essentially execute their specific skill, then you're going to win more games than you lose. And you might still have a bit of a dodgy batting order, but essentially what it does is show up England's bowling attack for what it truly is, you know?
Yeah.
And Jofra Archer aside, even yesterday when Australia were 5 down, I was struggling to see England bowling, taking 20 wickets in this series. Taking 20 wickets in this test match. Because Stokes is going to bowl himself into the ground. Jack's got 2 wickets caught on the boundary. Archer took a fifer. 2 of them were really soft as well, but he took a fifer and he deserved the success he had. But you can't tell me that England are going to be bowling teams out in overseas conditions when you've got bowlers as erratic as the ones that we've got, and bowlers that essentially can't bowl in partnerships, can't bowl as a team. It's essentially 4 individuals and the skipper who does bowl for the team. And Australia have shown the complete opposite with the bowlers they've put out on the field.
Yeah, and to continue on to what I've been saying, I thought Pat Cummins captained the team very, very well today. I thought his bowling changes were very good. And if you looked at it, because of, like you say, the way Lyon bowled, he could give Starc a rest. Starc wasn't as suited once the ball got 15 to 20 overs old, because the ball stopped moving around, and it wasn't flying off the surface. It was a surface where if you used your angles, hit the pitch hard, challenged in around that off stump. Boland had the keeper up for some of it. I thought Pat Cummins did not only a great job with the ball, his changes of bowling was good. But if you've got a spin bowler, I've been listening to Graham Swan all night. England haven't had anybody like Nathan Lyon since Graham Swan. And that the ability to have a controlling spin bowler who can block off 20 overs from one end, go for no runs, and still have a skin in the game when it comes to wickets, it makes it so much easier to go at the other end. And when you mentioned England's bowling attack, you're right. Stokes does bowl for the team, but Stokes is expensive as well. He does go for boundaries. So, like I said before, I'm not advocating that Broad, Anderson, and Wokes, should have been kept going, and they should have been here, especially Anderson and Wokes. But that type of bowler is something which I think we should have started with right from the very start, 18 months ago, planning, once Wokes was gone last year, Anderson was gone the summer before, you have that one bowler that can start a session, you can hang your hat on, he's not going to go anywhere for 2.5 and over, and then you have your Mavericks around it. And unfortunately, like you're right, England have got 4 Maverick seam bowlers, and I'm including the captain in that. And a spin bowler, well,
he's not a spin bowler, is he?
it's a broken record, that spin bowling option.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't want to use Liam Dawson. He didn't want to use Jack Leach. So all of a sudden, England, when it's all said and done, and we've had this, when we're sitting here at the end of Sydney, we're all going to be off our long run-ups. And I think there's a lot of people, I think, in the management side of how this squad, or how this debacle of preparation has gone. Like somebody said earlier, Brendan McCullum should resign now. No, he shouldn't. But I think at the end of the series, the people that have planned this trip have got a huge amount of questions to ask because they've got it horribly, horribly wrong.
Farhan Bashir says, get me Dom Sibley, Ben Folkes, Jimmy Anderson and all those people who could value their wickets. Bazball's funeral needs to be as grand as its celebration was when England was bashing mid-teams on flatties. Wow. We're going to get the Australian take on things. We're going to cross to Brisbane. Robert Crash Craddock will be joining us from Brisbane Courier Mail, part of Code Sports over there in Australia. You're either listening to us on talkSPORT 2, you're either watching us on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel, or maybe you're listening to this some point later on today on the Following On podcast feed. This is Following On Ashes Inquest.
A pitch-perfect delivery of superior cricket conversation. This is Following On Ashes Inquest on talkSPORT 2. hitting you for 6 with top-order cricket conversation. Following on Ashes Inquest on talkSPORT 2.
This is following on Ashes Inquest. I'm Jon Norman, Steve Harmison alongside me. We're not talking about the football. We're talking about the cricket. How much pain can one person have sporting-wise? I tell you what, it's not been pretty. But let's talk to a man who's probably feeling a little bit more chipper. Robert Crash Craddock from the Brisbane Courier Mail, part of Code Sports over in Australia, joins us. Crash, well, the wait for a competitive Ashes series goes on, I'm afraid. More one-sided fare today, but boy, oh boy, you must have appreciated how your boys went about bowling on a pitch that, if you listen to some people, was going to give up 600 runs to the English today.
Yes, John, look, let's be candid. I think it's been the best Australian performance in many seasons in terms of tight game plans, bringing Alex Carey up to the stumps. Plans to individual batsmen, the right lengths, the right lines. Everything sort of worked for Australia, and nothing's worked for England. I mean, in the first innings, there was no Australian batsman caught in slips or behind. Now, that has to be a statement on England's poor length. So, look, we said it last time, John, and we've got to say it again. In our lifetime, there's been no tight Ashes series in Australia, and nor is it happening this time.
Yeah, Crash, Australia got 371, and a lot of Australians thought they were short. They were short of 50, 60, 70 runs on a wicket, which is going to get better and better. Is that true, or what Australia just thinking, trying to give England a little bit of a bravado?
Yeah, look, it was barely a pass mark. Adelaide Oval, that is a good deck, Harmy. It's a good batting deck. But once again, Ollie Pope didn't even size up Nathan Lyon. He didn't even watch an over of him before this little deep to mid-wicket. It was reckless. And nothing will now redeem Harry Brooks' tour. Nothing will now redeem Duckett's tour. They're gone. Like, this Ashes are gone. I don't care if they score a double century in Melbourne, but you raised a terrific point in a column we did. Your fear for Andrew that Ben Stokes could suffer from what you call the Andrew Flintoff syndrome of overworking, over bowling, and breaking down. And Harmy, you got it right. It happened today, and I guess you must feel further damage could be ahead.
Yeah, I mean, further damage could be ahead because you don't know what Ben's body's going to pull up tomorrow, and then if they get a couple of quick wickets, Australia, England have to go out and bowl. And me and Jon Norman have been rightly talking about the difference between Australia's bowlers and England's bowlers. You mentioned there not being able to hit the right lines and lengths, and Stokes is one of the only ones that sort of pitch it up and give it a chance. So yeah, I think there is an issue that possibly he could go down like Andrew did in 2006-07, but he needs help for that not to happen. And the help from England's point of view is the non-spinner, but the spinner today for Australia worked brilliantly, and Nathan Lyon.
He did, and it just shows, gosh, he'll be a hard man to replace, Harmy. I mean, we take him for granted so much. And today he passed Glenn McGrath on the Australian wicket takers list. Only Shane Warne's ahead of him. And I remember when Shane Warne retired, Harmy, we had 11 spinners chosen before Nathan Lyon. And he came in and just did a job, for the last 14 years. He's so underrated. But it was, it's just... There was a constant threat. Pat Cummins came back, and his comeback was pitch perfect. He bowled really well. Boland was steady. Over the stumps, Carey moved up, a good game plan. So it worked for Australia, but I was hoping for more from England. I just felt anything beneath 320 was a failure on this wicket, Harmy.
Crash, do you feel with the English watching them that after the criticism that's been levelled at them, the manner of the Perth defeat, they were so far off at the Gabba, but do you look at these batters now and think, a bit like Bryden Carse's lengths, they're stuck and they don't know whether to stick or twist?
That's a very good point, John. I see a team uncertain of where they are and what they're doing. Today was one of their slowest innings in the Bazball era. That's very significant. They were trying to sort of respect the bowling, respect the conditions, and I felt that they were sort of caught between stools. And Stokes was wonderful, wasn't he? 4 hours into a 50. He was terrific. And Archer was good down the end after they had a blue early in the day. But I saw a man close to snapping when Stokes challenged Archer after the first few poor overs when he finally got Stark out. He didn't care who was watching him. And I've seen that before, captains overseas. Australia are very big captain killers. Wasim Akram, Graham Gooch, Jimmy Adams, the list, Sachin Tendulkar, the list is as long as your arm of the captains whose careers have been finished by poor series against Australia because they're long series and they hurt. So, Ben, England needs him, and Harmy said it. He has to exist beyond this series. My question is, will he have had enough?
I know he stays for me, and he stays. I think he'll stay for the wider public. Believe it or not, Crash, some of our comments on the YouTube chat point are criticising Ben Stokes' innings and criticising England for being a bit boring. I mean, I just didn't think he had much option to play the way he did. Coming tomorrow, though, England will get bowled out eventually. Even if England go well and put another 60 on, they're still 100 runs behind. Thankfully for us, Steve Smith's not playing. Where do you think Australia will go? Do you think they'll come out aggressively? Or do you think Australia will go, right, we're going to bat for a day and a half and grind you lot into the dirt?
I think mainly the first one. I think England's bowlers will be tired. They've had to bat this afternoon after bowling this morning. It's really hot, 38, 39, Harmy. And they're not used to a lot of heavy-duty cricket. So I think you'll see Weatherall go hard. It's got Travis Head written all over it, this one, like as in biff, bang, whack. You watch him early. So, yeah, and if it's a lead of 110, 120, I feel the game's gone, Harmy. I feel the game's gone. And they did have a sniff. There was some nice moments for England in this test. And I really felt sorry for them for the Snicko stuff up when Alex Carey should have been out on 72. I mean, they're potentially chasing 100 more than they should have, and that's big, So Snicko's been a disaster in this game.
I was going to ask you about Snicko. Me and Harmy actually haven't spoken about it, and thankfully it'll be a footnote, you imagine, at the end of the series. But could you imagine if it was 1-1 with the series very much alive, and you have the Alex Carey situation happen yesterday, and then there was another couple today, one involving Jamie Smith for the second time in the series, by the way, where Ben Stokes couldn't believe it. Jamie Smith didn't think he'd hit it. Nobody's still quite sure whether the umpire gave it out on field or not. I think essentially he didn't think the ball had carried because he'd seen an earlier incident involving Joe Root and Alex Carey where the ball hadn't carried. Essentially gave it out, didn't raise the finger, but when checking with third umpire, turns out, anyway, Jamie Smith had to walk off, but something needs to be done about your Snicko. I'm just surprised that this is the first time we've really noticed it being the problem that it clearly is.
Well, there was an incident in Perth where Jamie Smith, he walked, remember, and the sound and the Snicko didn't line up. So it is a worry. There's a feeling that cricket's the only sport in the world where they leave it to the home broadcaster to decide what they're doing. I mean, it wouldn't happen in soccer. It wouldn't happen in a lot of different sports. At least they take charge and standardise it around the world. Now, a lot of people in the English press box, John, over the last 24 hours of saying our version, Ultra Edge in England, is far superior to Snicko. And I reckon that will come into Australia as soon as next season. So, but yeah, it is a worry, and it's a real talking point. And there was another incident, of course, where the ball appeared to Australia was so confident they had Smith caught behind off a glove, which the ball hit his helmet. So it was interesting. It's unacceptable. Technology has to be better than that. It has to solve problems, not create them.
Sorry, Harmy, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, just finally for me, Crash, you know, we've got Pat Cummins haven't bowled since July. You know, if Australia bat all day tomorrow, have you got any worry or hang-ups that Australia will not have enough in the tank to finish England off?
Harmy, I can sum that up in one word: lion. I just think that he'll have a good second innings. He'll anchor down one end. You know, he'll take 4 for 64. You know, and the others will chip in around him. Carey will move over the stumps. Boland or Boland or wearing wicket like this. So I think they'll find a way. And it's disappointing, Harmy, because I'm cheering for the contest, you know, like tomorrow was the halfway point of this series. Halfway through tomorrow, that's the halfway point. And you know, it's sort of, there's that feeling that it's sort of over, like, but not one English player has enhanced their reputation. And that's, I'm so disappointed because, you know, I'm not gloating at all. I just wanted a really good contest this, you know, because I felt you boys were up for it and we duly talked it up. We were so excited.
Crash, so, it's terrible. We're disappointing you. That's even worse than you gloating that you've won. Oh, I feel guilty and disappointed at the same time. That's ridiculous. Crash, thanks for your input. We'll get you back on at some point, but you can read Crash's thoughts in the Brisbane Courier Mail or via the talkSPORT app. So head over there. Somerset Cricket have just tweeted, Jack Leach had the most county championship wickets for us last season. Open bracket 52, close bracket. He recently signed a new 2-year contract with us to keep him at the club until the end of the 2028 season. The best specialist spinner in England? Question mark, with a couple of eyes in there as well. Lots of reaction, as you'd imagine, Harmy, on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel feed. Patrick Nolan says, John, Snicko, whinging Poms. I'm not whinging. I think Jamie Smith hit it. But that Snicko machine needs throwing out. And I think the Aussies are whinging more than the English at points today. Aussies bowled well, too well today. For God's sake, replace Pope with anything you got, says no handler. And Nasty Badger. I agree with Harmison on Stokes play, but I wanted him to hit out at Lyon. That was kind of shocking. England played like they were scared. Harmy, scared. That's
shot, mentally scrambled. And if you want to use the word scared, you can do. I don't think they're scared. I just think they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They don't back their techniques against a very, very good bowling attack who have bowled brilliantly from both ends.
Okay, then, we've got a couple of minutes before the end of the show. Let's look ahead to tomorrow. I mean, you were quite optimistic yesterday. England trailed by 158. I mean, we were of the opinion that they needed to lead by 80. And after the morning session, which saw, you know, Australia push their lead, or push their first innings score up, rather. They added 45 in the morning session. They batted for another 38 minutes. That was a crucial start to proceedings. Yes, Archer took a fifer, but once again, you know, Cast went for a few, and even Archer did, actually. There's a couple of short wide ones. It looked like a bowler who bowled too many yesterday. I mean, is there any hope? I mean, according to CricViz, I'll have a look to see what the percentage is. Yesterday, they had Australia down at 73%. I guess if I look at it now, it's going to say 99% Australia win, isn't it?
It'll be close to that. It'll be 90 something, I would have thought.
Actually, it's 83%.
83, yeah. That's still a lot, that. It's still a lot, John. Yeah. If for England now, there's 12 overs to the second new ball. Now, if it was England bowling, you'd go, what's the threat with this old ball to potentially knock them over before the second new ball? Crash is right. They've got Lyon. There's the threat for 6 overs from one end. If England can still be batting when the second new ball comes around and can have a deficit by the end of it of 75, they're hanging on by their fingernails, but it's just fingernails. That means they're chasing in excess of 300, 320, 350 on a surface which is wearing day 4 into day 5 with one of the greatest spinners of all time. That's a big ask. When England are in their own back garden, and all things are going rosy, England would have a chance doing that. England at this moment in time, the way they are mentally, physically, and probably technically, I think 125 fourth innings could be a really, really big challenge for them.
We've had a comment. Have England played more days of golf than days of cricket in the Ashes so far? Possibly. They have been there for a month. Moren Bitshu says, England batters really need to introspect their ideology. Bazball can be effective in certain scenarios, but it's the classic test match approach that ultimately places you in the league of greats. Do you know what? Listening to Crash then, he said something that's absolutely damning. Not one England player has enhanced his reputation in the Ashes
100%.
So far.
100%. 100%. And that just tells you why that they're going to lose the Ashes quicker than anybody else has lost them in English cricket history. You can blame preparation, you can blame playing golf, you can blame going to Noosa, you can blame not going to Canberra. Today, if somebody came on here and tried to convince me to blame Snicko, it would be so short-sighted. Bottom of it is, England have not been good enough in every single facet that they've come up against a very, very, I wouldn't say a very, very good Australia side, but in this test match, on the flattest pitch of all, when Bazball should have been at its biggest and best, England have been done over by a very, very, very good bowling attack. And that is something, hey, you can take your hat off and doff your cap. Getting beat and losing to a very, very good player, to play that. But I think England again this is the third test match in a row that they've contributed to their downfall.
It's been chastening. Also, do you know what? Tomorrow will be the halfway point of the Ashes. If you were imagine them to be all 5-day tests. Yeah. Midway point of lunch and tea on day 3 at Adelaide will be the halfway point of this Ashes series.
Australia could be 300 in front.
Yeah. Okay, Harmy, we've both been up all night. I'm going to let you go. You head off. You get some sleep. I imagine you're going to be up again and you're not going to be buoyed by Newcastle beating my team Fulham. Meanwhile, by the way, in Mount Maunganui, I tell you what, how much would you have loved this scorecard? New Zealand ended the day 334 for 1. Oh, imagine that. Crawley with an unbeaten 150. Ben Duckett just falling just short of what would be his first Ashes century. And Ollie Pope with a swashbuckling 100-odd. Shades of Brisbane 2010. We can forget about Alistair Cook and Andrew Strauss and Jonathan Trott because England have replaced them today and the Ashes is alive. 2-1 down, going to Melbourne, and with all the impetus and momentum. Oh, never mind, wasn't to be. We will be back though following day 3 of Adelaide. What will we be talking about tomorrow? Well, I'm slightly fearful. Join us though, either via the following on podcast feed, talkSPORT 2 or the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us here on Following On Ashes Inquest.
A pitch-perfect delivery of superior cricket conversation. This is Following On Ashes Inquest on talkSPORT 2.